everyday witches emerge from the shadows of secrecy. Broom closets are flinging open and witches are taking flight. Whether you are hiding in your cozy closet or flying with pride, stay for a spell as Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon and her guests share magical moments, stir the cauldron, and debunk misinformation and misconceptions about paganism, witches, and our wonderful world of magic.
Our special guest today is Ron Schaefer, a retired Air Force fighter pilot. He's here to talk about Sacred Well Congregation, being on the board of deacons with Sacred Well, and how he came home to Wicca. His craft name is Astralaya. Welcome, Astralaya.
Hi, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're a big guy in Sacred Well Congregation.
Well, I don't know how big. I actually just lost 25 pounds recently, so maybe not quite that.
Tell us how you became acquainted with Sacred Well.
Actually, I was in a period of seeking. I was in the Air Force, fairly senior officer, lieutenant colonel, fighter pilot. In a coordination or in furtherance of that seeking, I was visiting some local area pagan bookstores. And I was wandering around. I had my flight suit on. I was wandering around this store, and this lady came up to me and said, "Hi, so you're in the military, obviously?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Can I help you with anything?" And I said, "No, I'm just looking at your stuff, for some books. I'm kind of new to a spiritual path that I'm looking to find some information on." And she goes, "Well, do you know what kind of store this is?" I said, "Yeah, it's a pagan bookstore." And she goes, "Okay, I just want to make sure you didn't look like the kind of guy that normally comes in here." We chatted a bit, and I bought a few things, some books, and I went over and I was checking out. She says, I know another guy that's formerly military. He's law enforcement now. And, he's also pagan. You might want to hook up with him. And she gave me a card with David Orringdorf, Dr. David Orringdorf. He goes by Tiny Kettle in his craft name. And so, sure, I looked him up. We agreed to have lunch, and we went to a little local Mexican food restaurant. We just hit it off immediately. Prior to that, I had no knowledge of Sacred Well or really any of the other big organizations like Circle Sanctuary and ADF. And it was just through that bookstore, just serendipity, walking in that day and this lady kind of facilitating. And so I met with David and we really hit it off. And I started studying with Sacred Well Congregation in the Greencraft Wicca tradition. And it just went on. That was about 1997 or so. So it's been a minute since I started that journey.
After meeting Dr. Orringdorf, how much time had passed before you became one of the board members?
Well, that was a minute. And I don't know the exact evolution, but I'll try to paraphrase it. I, studied with Greencraft tradition. I was initiated as a neophyte into the Greencraft tradition. And then I was deployed to Korea on an unaccompanied remote assignment. And while I was over there, I helped write the Spiritual Philosophy and Practice of Wicca in the U.S. military, which is still available online today. And it's gone through a few edits. That was at the request of the Armed Forces Chaplains Board. And so we did that. We also started working on the deaconry training program. I came back to the States in about 2001 or so. Went up through a couple more degrees, second degree, third degree. Sometime during that time frame, I think I was still in the Air Force, but getting ready to retire, about the 25-year point for me. They asked me to be on the board of deacons. I had been a deacon already, which is a requirement to be a distinctive religious group leader, which I had founded a a circle in Osan, Korea. It was the first open circle in Osan, Korea. I believe it's still active today. So during that period, I became a deacon. And then after several years, I can't remember how long, they asked me to be on the board. We don't really call it the board of directors. It's the board of deacons. Yeah, I said, sure, why not? And I went along doing that for, I don't know, I guess maybe 15 years or so. And then I think some of the folks that had been in there had really, they'd worked hard. They'd carried a lot of the weight on their own shoulders and all that. And so they had asked me to be the executive director. I was very reluctant to do that because of time constraints. And frankly, I had been at it so long and been a public face with the greater pagan community and all that. I just wasn't sure I had the excitement or the gas left in the tank to do it. But the plea was continuous. So I was like, okay, I'll give you 2 years. And so I agreed to take it over for 2 years while we looked for the real guy, the real long-term guy, which we now have in place now, Shane Nelson. And he is a magically good fit for Sacred Well. So we think the biggest thing I accomplished was helping us realize and get poised for the business and the services that we actually provide right now and the structure that we have, and helping to bring on a good fit for the executive director. So I was good enough to do that, but the new guy's the real deal. So very pleased to help do that.
I'm sure you were wonderful too when you were in the position. Everybody brings their own magic.
Have you been wanting to ride your broom like you stole it, rather than hiding in the shadows? Theodora Pendragon is here to help your magic shine, whether you want to show the world your subtle sparkle, or you really want to light your fire. Visit Theodora's online store at witchcasting.shop. That's witchcasting.shop. Remember, there's never been a better time to be a witch.
So Sacred Well has been doing what we're doing now for many years, but we kept calling ourselves a Universalist Wiccan church because that was what we signed up to be way back in the day. But it turns out that we had morphed to a position where we were providing ecclesiastical support, we were doing denominational support, and we were offering ordination classes and courses for people that we were recognizing with partner organizations like Cherry Hill Seminary and Star King. So I finally said, look, we need to come up with, first, it's a very modernistic thing, particularly for nonprofits, to have mission, vision, value statements that drive what we do. So we worked on that for a few months, adopted those, and then I tried to match those to fold in what I was just talking about right there. And we finally got some language in there in our website and all that speaks to the fact that we provide those services. And we got organized to have faculty and mentors, people within the organization, the board. The board really grew. And I won't say it was during, that it was because of me, but during my tenure there, the board really grew a lot. So we got a lot of help that we didn't have previously. We moved some people into empty chairs, a lot of brainstorming. And so, we did a lot of administrivia, and it was a transitional path during my watch where we kind of arrived at where we are now, which is at the launch pad. And the guys that are on board now, and with Shane on board now, I think we're really ready to go forward and grow into the shoes that we've bought ourselves. Long-winded answer there.
When you first joined Sacred Well congregation, did you anticipate that it would grow as much as it has?
I wasn't sure, but it was the first secular organization that I'd met that was kind of an institution rather than just being Covenstead and kind of ad hoc California freestyle, if you will. So I wanted to be active in that. My key motivation was to learn all that I could, meet people, and not necessarily proselytize, but to educate those who came seeking, or to go ahead and live in my truth of being out of the closet, as it were, because some of the things for some of the great writers like Margot Adler in Drawing Down the Moon talks about why people are Wiccan or drawn to pagan faiths. I really believed that the state of the world right now was just a disaster. And a lot of it was the result of post-industrial society issues and philosophies, largely based on monotheism and, the three big monotheistic religions. And so it was my opinion that we badly needed to reunite men and women as co-equal supportive partners in the world. And then we needed to reunite mankind with the land and the nature to move forward out of this destructive, toxic environment we were in. So the short answer to that was, I believe that a return to paganism, or at least bringing some of that respect back into our daily lives of respect and stewardship for nature, was absolutely required to further the existence of mankind. So it was kind of a low level, me searching people out, and then the higher level goals that I had in the back of my mind. And so I had no idea where Sacred Well would go. And for a while, it was really hard to find our roots, because Sacred Well was actually founded so that we could provide denominational support, or I should say ordination, to our brethren in Europe who were the stewards of and founders of the Greencraft tradition. And the Greencraft Wiccan tradition is a direct lineage from Alex and Maxine Saunders' Alexandrian Wicca, with a few other things thrown in there. Eclectic as all Wiccan faiths are to some extent. And so that's where it was founded, or that was the original purpose. And also to give some sort of venue in the United States for the outreach for the Greencraft Wicca and provision of teaching and training and whatnot. And then shortly after, I forget the date, but about 95 or so, we had some folks at Fort Hood, Texas, big Army installation out there, we need to have a denominational support group supporting us in order for us to found an open circle on this big military post. And so everybody kicked it around a little bit and said, okay, yeah, we can do that. So we did. That was a watershed moment. So when we took on the responsibility to support the Wiccans at Fort Hood, that did a lot of things. First off, it was the first ever to do that. And it was our first circle. It gained a lot of press, and there was a lot of national controversy, even to folks in Congress and whatnot. And we weathered the day and won that. And Fort Hood is still in practice. And I think Sacred Well, I think Shane told me last week that we currently have I don't know, I'm misquoting. This won't be exactly accurate, but on the order of 24 military open circles, and it's global. We've even had open circles in combat zones, and it continues to go forward. We're continuing to try to field a military chaplain who is of the pagan or Wiccan faith. Yeah, it just really grew heads, man. We did not see that coming. Well, then along the way, because we were doing that, there was a public visibility of what we were doing. And we wound up through partnership with Cherry Hill Seminary. We had some of our members that became teaching staff and faculty and whatnot. From there, we got involved with partnerships with Star King, and there's a couple of them coming, but I don't want to mention them yet because that they haven't been exactly fleshed out. And that's kind of for Shane to announce, not me. So, but anyway, that's ongoing to where we're going to be partnering with several secular accredited institutions, organizations of great credibility, where we'll be providing ordination in nature-based spirituality, not just Wicca, but whatever nature-based faith that they practice. They, of course, will be required to understand us and our philosophy as they go forward there. But so yeah, it's vibrant, it's ongoing, a lot of outreach. We do perform some work with the VA and hospitals and prison ministries. We've got a director now of prison ministries. It's an ongoing and growing concern, and our goal is to foster fellowship amongst the greater nature-based pagandom, interfaith practice, and spiritual education, and to support these organizations. So,
for the listeners who don't know, can you tell us who Cherry Hill Seminary is and Star King?
Cherry Hill Seminary has been around a bit. They're not accredited yet, but that's in the works. It's being pursued. They provide master's programs, spiritual director programs, community ministry certificates, which is very, very handy and useful to the average person who wants to up their game a little and get some formal training to be the face of or to lead a public group. They have insights courses, which you can just sign up if it's a topic that you're really interested in. And they have a very high level of scholarship, PhDs, MDivs, those guys that teach those courses are right up there with the Harvards, and some of them even trained at those universities. So they're very high level institute of higher learning, specifically focused on the nature-based spirituality. Star King is the same kind of thing, based out in California. I'm kind of new to them and working with them, so I don't want to, you can go to Star King Institute to look at their webpage to find out all what they do. So I don't want to misspeak myself on their behalf. So, but it's exciting to be growing and to be associated with that level of scholarship. There's quite frankly, there's a lot of press out there that most of us nature-based spiritualists are flakes and weirdos. And so, not that we care.
No, we don't care.
I'll fess right up to hugging my trees, but it is nice to be recognized alongside those level of organizations.
Where would you like to see Sacred Well grow in the future?
Oh, man, we're already kind of headed the direction that I would like to see us, which is an organization a robust, healthy organization recognized as a go-to, fair, honest broker for nature-based spirituality, connector, orchestrator, people who can point you in the direction you'd like to go. Or if we have training in something within our walls, like Greencraft Wicca that you're interested in, we can provide training in those areas. We also have hookups with many other pagan faiths like Norse pagan, Asatru, Kemetic, Greek Hellenic. So we have a lot we can offer. And if we don't do it in-house, we can farm it out to people we know. So we forge those links. We can also be good partners with these credible institutions. We currently do, when people come talking about ordination and they haven't gone anywhere yet, we point them over to Cherry Hill Seminary. Probably soon, depending on what their interests are, we might start doing that with Star King and some of these other institutes. And then fellowship, where we could merge together under mentorship. We can hold Zoom conferences and things like that with the DRGLs, with people of a particular faith group, maybe the Greencraft Wiccans, so there'll be some periodic sharing and fellowship. And then annually, we're going to start right now this year with the 30th. Actually, so we'll put that shout out there in mid-June. We're going to have a convention, Sacred Well Convention, celebrating the 30th anniversary of Sacred Well. I believe it's going to be down here in Leakey, Texas, but it's to be determined. So there will be information coming out. In fact, if you visit our website, there's an announcement about that with some top level, kind of a save the date kind of thing. And so that's coming. So yeah, and we have a lot of intellectual properties that we've put out there. So it'd be nice to clean those up a little bit and have them not only published and living as references and archives in Sacred Well, but maybe out there on the streets. We have right now the Greencraft Tarot book, which is a book that's our cosmology and quite a bit about everything Greencraft that you'd like to know. And we've got a tarot deck that you can both very much use for divination. It's designed to be that way, featuring our philosophies. And it can also be used for introspection and self-study, just like any other deck like that. And I actually had a hand in that. I drew and created all the major arcana cards in that deck, and then hosted three other artists that did the house cards, the different pinnacles and cups and whatnot, the court cards and things like that. And we put them all together. We had weekly Zoom meetings with Argisha, which you've already spoken with him over, and he's the father of all that. And so then I was the director of the art activities. And so we would show the cards and see where we were at and make commentary. And so we all had an input on each other's artwork to put that together. Now, and I don't know if it's a fluke or not, our goal was, and I had a friend of mine who also, we did a little nepotism here, Air Force buddy, who also is a publishing company. And so we went through him to get the books published, and the idea was to have it published so that it'd be available to all the guys in our craft and whoever else was interested, in our tradition. And it wouldn't cost us anything. So that was our goal. Well, we wound up selling actually about 1,500 copies of the book, which is not, necessarily a bestseller or whatnot, but they all got out there to everyone that wanted one. And then somewhere along the way, the word got out and it got interested. We sold all the books out and there was no provisions for another run. And I was looking for a few books the other day for some of our friends at Cherry Hill, and they were listed online for $900 a copy.
What?
Yeah, I think that's just an availability and, some kind of AI bot algorithm or something that says, okay, we've only got 3 of these in captivity in the world. And so I actually found out of an old book, though, like 5 copies of the books and 6 copies of the cards. So I'm going to send those to Holly and probably Pamela over at Star King. And just a little side rabbit hole there. So, yeah, coming back to the topic, the question was, where do we want to see Sacred Well going? Well, I would like to see us robust and healthy and all those things that we're doing right now. We don't have to be the end all or get into our fingers into too many pies. If we're doing those things that we're doing right now, those are all very credible, critical, needed services. And if we can just be known to credible go-to guys, hey, if you don't know what you're looking for, or you have some questions about where you think you might like to go, call these guys and somebody will help you. That's where I'd like to see us go.
That's where I'd like to see us go, too. Are you currently on the board of deacons now?
Yes, I am. I serve as the executive director ex officio, and we just kind of recently adopted that style that there's the guy who's in the chair, there's the former guys that you can call on if you need to. Maybe he comes across a document or a piece of paper and goes, what is this? And, he called me and I could offer my 2 cents worth, although I don't have any, control or say anymore. I'm more or less a point of continuity. And then there's the new guy. And we don't really currently have who's going to be the new guy because we really like Shane and we hope he's going to be the new guy for a while. So, so I'm still doing that. I kind of, I'm more like David, a point of continuity than anything. I have a pretty good memory. And I think we were founded in 1994. And I think I joined Sacred Well in 96 or something. So I've kind of been with us for the long haul and kind of like Holly on Cherry Hill Seminary, although not nearly the level of breadth and depth and expertise and capability that she has. But that guy that's the old Methuselah dude that knew what happened back in the day.
Before Sacred Well Congregation and before meeting Dr. Oringderv, tell us about your path into coming into the craft.
That, again, was also fairly serendipitous. I was always interested in history and culture, and I lived all over the world. I really don't know exactly what was going on in my life at the time, but I started, it was at Air War College. Of all places, I was in the Air War College for the Air Force, and we had a section in there that was spirituality and its effect on cultures, and particularly a lot of focus on Islam and its influence on the Middle Eastern and political dynamics and stuff like that, the Jewish traditions and Hindu faith in India. And so that was the thing. And so in order to understand the impact and faith had on particular politics or country or region, you had to first learn a little something about the religion and its philosophy and edict and role and what society might be and politics. Some completely eschew involvement in, politics. Some of them, encourage you to go out there and proselytize in politics. So while I was going through there, I was really much stricken by a couple of things. One was, while there are 92 different religions in the world that are listed, and there, who knows how many else are out there, but 92 known codified religions through the world, so many of them are so similar and have the same creation stories or some close variation on that. And yet at the same time, philosophies and end games and how you relate with others and all that can also be vastly different. So I got pretty fascinated with that. And I had a person who worked with me in my squadron. I was the operations officer here in San Antonio. And I was in the 560th Flying Training Squadron. This other person had an interest in that as well. And she was a very intelligent young woman and very well read and studied. Unbeknownst to me, now I know all what it is now, but she had a copy of all the Gnosis magazines. And she brought to work one day and she says, I think you might be interested in reading this. And it was I think it was like episode 49 or something. I could get it to look it up. I've got them over here. And it was about Gnosis and Western modern pagan traditions. And I was like, what? And had articles in there by Oberon Zell and Z Budapest and Judy Harrow, who became a very close, wonderful friend prior to her passing. And so I started reading through all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, I believe that. I think that, So it was actually Judy Harrow's article. So I read that and I was like, man, I think I might be a witch. And so,
That's what I am. That's me.
Yeah, it was so resonant. It really struck me. I was like, yeah, that's what I believe. I believe that right there. It was a aha moment of the highest order. And here I was, a senior officer in the military, one of the squarest, most conservative organizations in the world. That said, we've often been on the leading edge of cultural experimentation in the military. And so, and then when I went to Korea, I really got into studying. And of course, I was already with Sacred Well by then. And I'd gotten back. In fact, I was sitting at my desk one day and I got an email out of the blue, and it was from Judy Harrow. And at that time, Judy was a big name pagan. It'd be like getting an email from any other, big name author. So she said, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with David Oringdorf. I want to research X, Y, and Z, and I wonder if he might like to play. And so I said, yeah, man, I'll be your Huckleberry. So I hooked them up, and then I told her back, I said, by the way, just for you to know, man, I'm kind of floored and dumbfounded. I'm fangirling here, about I've read all your stuff. You're the reason I found and came into Wicca. So we got to be buddies. She came to our conventions. We emailed weekly. She stayed with me in our camper at a couple of the conventions and stayed at my house. And she's the one that got me introduced into Cherry Hill Seminary. We worked together here on some initiatives here in San Antonio on women, infants, children's causes and whatnot. So just one morning we were sitting there trying to decide about the future of Sacred Well, and that wasn't really the topic. Topic was, how can we do some kind of training program for Wiccans? What should we do for ordination? And that's when we first started kicking this all around. And we'd had a party and everybody had gone home, and Judy and I were sitting at the coffee table there in the lounge of this guest room, and we were drinking all the leftover wine.
For breakfast?
On cocktail napkins, like you've heard it before. We really were on cocktail napkins, kind of brainstorming. Well, man, I think maybe the course ought to have this, and a little study of that, and how could you do it? And we went around, and I looked outside, and it was kind of a light outside, and I went, man, what is going on outside? And she says, Ron, I think that's called daytime. we had set up all evening brainstorming about what the ordination class ought to look like, and drinking the rest of the wine and all that. So very fond of Judy Harrow, and honest to God, she's probably the one who had the most effect on me coming into the craft. A lot of guys don't have that kind of story.
No, that is an incredible story.
And I got for Christmas and various things, I got signed copies of her books. So that's an added perk. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
She would have these just down-to-earth witticisms that you, like your great-grandmother would have. Like we were talking one day about, I think the subject was the pagans and never having any money and everything should be free and all that kind of stuff. And she was saying, well, the fact of the matter is, if you want to be a good witch, you've got to have the earth altar in order. Just stuff like that. She was like, prayer is great, but it don't fix the roof. So she just had a million witticisms like that.
What would you like to tell the listeners? Do you have any advice or information that you think they should know today?
The first thing I would say is that to be open and accept yourself, and if you're pagan or trying to decide you're pagan or where you want to go, just do that. You do you. You might call us or Cherry Hill or Star King or any of the other folks that are online. And then there's a lot of them out there, and just ask your questions as you will. However, I would say that even as we've made progress coming along the way, now we're also having that same downturn that the LGBTQ plus IA, abortion issues, racism, racial issues, we're having a little backup these days with that and regression in that. I would say that not be the first thing you say is walk up and go, "Hi, I'm Ron Schaefer. I'm a Wiccan," because your Catholic bros wouldn't do that. I would say stay out of discussions with religion, politics, and
money. That's what I was told growing up. You don't talk about religion, money, or politics
until you really get to know somebody and you trust that they may completely not agree with you at all, but they're not going to try to have you killed or burn your house down. So I would say that is, or it's like when you do sex education with your children. They ask you a question, you answer it honestly at the level and with just as much information as they need to know to answer the question. This late day and age and in my practice, I got totally roped into a religious discussion with some new people that I just met. Great folks. We were just having a great time. And it had to do with the Israeli-Hamas conflict. And there were a couple guys that were hardcore evangelical Christians there, even though good folk. They got to talking about all this stuff in the Holy Land and whatnot. And somehow I think I made a comment about, well, I've been to Israel a number of times, and it never seemed like the Holy Land to me. It always seemed as though it was under a state of siege. And, there's a whole lot of history out there of who lived in that little strip of land, and perhaps some discussion about who ought to have rightful ownership or in it. And man, that wasn't walking through the minefield. That was just jumping right on the mine. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I would say, if you're new to the craft and you're still seeking and you're kind of got that starry-eyed and you're really motivated, ask your questions, seek out, go to a bunch of the different websites, talk to us here at Sacred Well. When others ask you questions about your faith, either absolutely have a solid canned answer that's as apolitical as possible, or just answer, like sex education, answer their question when, what do you think about the afterlife? Well, most of the time we believe in reincarnation, and after that it gets a little fuzzy. Let it go. So be circumspect in your interaction with the other folk. Also, enjoy and practice your faith. Don't just read it and become a left brain egghead. Get out there and hug some trees, or go lay in the sun, or smell the air, and try to formulate the philosophy of the season with the reality of the season. Get outside and experience it. And in your life, some of the concepts about, the law of threes, for instance, go out there and try to give back as much as you can. It's another Judy heroism is not everybody can give a lot, but everybody can give something. So become the change, as it were, that we've heard so much, and is what's such a well-known saying: become the change you want to see. Represent your faith in a good light. I've been there and done that through so many different forests and dales and hills and endeavors and whatnot, that I really don't have anything that I can say just right, pointed, and focused and brilliant. Just be you. Don't be obnoxious. Don't be a doormat, and don't be a dick. So.
Thank you, Astralaya, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on. It was really enjoyable. I like to chat, adult company, time. We're empty nesters, so it's fun. It's fun to talk about the faith and the craft and all that. And I think this is a great venue. This is another one of those things winding. I know you're trying to wind it up here, but where we'd like to see Sacred Well go, we're doing it. We've got the convention coming back. We've got prison ministries and a director for that. We've got people who have the tech savvy and talent to do outreach, and so here we are. And so we're actually getting there. We're doing it. So I'm kind of jazzed. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon. Have a burning question or have a topic you'd love Theodora and her guests to discuss on the show? Contact her through Instagram at Theodora Pendragon. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And help us spread the word by leaving us a rating and review and sharing it with your friends. See you next time, and may your magic always shine.